Dust coiled through the dry summer air of Dry Creek, a frontier town where justice often came slower than a six-shooter, and cruelty traveled faster than gossip. The townsfolk leaned against their porch railings and watched the so-called wedding like it was entertainment. And maybe to them, it was. Clara Bell, 28, stood stiff in a patched dress that strained across her generous hips. Her cheeks burned with humiliation beneath her honey-colored curls. The preacher mumbled a blessing over the union, while several cowhands chuckled behind their whiskey bottles. Across from her stood Jed Hawkins, the quiet rancher from the outskirts of town. He was tall and weather-worn, his broad shoulders tense beneath a threadbare coat. Jed hadn't asked for a bride. He'd merely told the general store clerk that life on the ranch was lonesome. The town took that as a cue for mischief. Fat Clara, they called her behind closed doors. An orphan raised by cruel relatives, Clara was sold into a mock marriage like livestock, humiliated and handed over to a man the town considered too odd to protest. When the preacher finished, Jed didn't smile, didn't kiss her hand. He simply looked at Clara with a gaze void of mockery or laughter. "You got a bag?" he asked. Clara blinked. "Why, yes." "Come on, then." He led her to his horse-drawn wagon, away from the snickers and the cruel joke that had just been played on them both. Chapter 2, The Silent Ranch. Jed's ranch sat several miles from town, rolling land, a cracked windmill, and a modest cabin nestled in the hills. It was a place that whispered loneliness, but also something steady and grounded. They didn't speak much that first evening. Clara unpacked her few belongings and set about boiling water for stew. She half expected Jed to bark at her or demand something unkind. Instead, he quietly fed the horses and chopped extra firewood. When he returned, he stared at her long and hard before finally saying, "You ain't here for show. You do what you want. You want to leave, I won't stop you. But if you want to stay, this place is yours too." Clara's lips trembled. "You don't mind that they—" "I know what they did," he said, his jaw tight. "Town thinks I'm dumb because I don't waste words. Truth is, I'm tired of noise, and I reckon they hurt you more than they ever could me." That night, Clara cried silently into a straw pillow, not from sorrow, but from the sudden weight of something unfamiliar, dignity. Chapter 3, Wounds Beneath Skin. Weeks passed. Clara worked beside Jed, mending fences, feeding livestock, learning to milk the stubborn cow named Daisy. Her curves, once mocked, proved to be an advantage in hauling pails and holding her ground when the wind howled. Jed noticed the changes. He noticed her. She laughed more now, the sound like water over river stones. Her hand became callous, but her smile softened. Yet behind her amber eyes there lingered pain, of abandonment, of betrayal, of being seen as nothing more than a joke. One evening, as the orange sun bled across the plains, Jed found her sitting beneath the cottonwood tree near the edge of the property, holding a worn locket. "Your folks?" he asked, nodding to it. Clara sighed. "My ma. She died when I was 10. My aunt took me in, but she treated me like a burden. Told me no man would ever want someone my size. Said I should be grateful if anyone looked twice." Jed stayed into the distance. "My wife died 5 winters ago. Fever took her fast. Since then, I figured the world had no more warmth left for me." She looked at him then, really looked. In his silence, she saw a man of quiet strength. A man who didn't flinch at hardship or at her. "Guess we're both ghosts," she whispered. "Maybe," he said, "but ghosts don't plant crops. Or laugh at the rooster when he chases you round the barn." Clara grinned. "He is a mean little beast." Jed chuckled, a deep, warm sound that startled even him. That night, when he passed her a mug of coffee beside the fire, their fingers brushed. Neither pulled away. Chapter 4, Fire and Fury. Just as summer threatened to surrender to autumn, trouble rode in on horseback. Wayland Dodd, a gambler and known drunk, stumbled into the ranch yard with two other men. Word had reached town that Clara, fat Clara, hadn't run off like they'd bet she would. Worse, Jed wasn't just tolerating her. He cared for her. Thought we'd come collect our winnings. Waylon sneered. You owe us a laugh, Jed. Let's see if your wife still juggles pies with her elbows. Jed stepped forward, fists clenched. You ride off my land, Waylon. Clara stood behind him, shaking, but not with fear, with fury. I was sold like an animal, she said, voice trembling. You used me to shame him. But guess what? I found someone better than all of you put together. I found a man who doesn't give a damn about what I weigh, and he treats me like I matter. Waylon spat. Fat mouth on a fat girl. Jed punched him so hard he fell into a trough. The other two men reached for their guns, but Clara grabbed the old shotgun from the porch and cocked it. I may not shoot straight, she said, but at this range, I don't need to. They backed off. Waylon staggered to his feet, wet and humiliated. You'll regret this, he snarled. Get off my land, Jed growled. They left in a cloud of dust, but not before leaving behind a threat that clung to the air like gun smoke. Chapter 5. Storm Before Sunrise. 2 nights later, Clara awoke to the smell of smoke. The barn was ablaze. Jed had already rushed out with a bucket. Clara followed, coughing and wide-eyed. Together, they fought the fire, hauling water, cutting free the horses, shielding the chickens. It took hours, but they saved what they could. By dawn, Jed collapsed beside the scorched earth, soot on his face, eyes haunted. Clara knelt beside him and took his hand. They did this. Jed nodded. I won't leave, she said. I never asked you to stay. She leaned in close. I know. That's what makes it matter. And right then, among the ruin and ruin makers, Jed kissed her. It wasn't soft or tentative. It was real. Ashes still swirled in the air, but for once, Clara didn't feel like someone's burden. She felt wanted. Chapter 6. Redemption in Bloom. That winter was brutal, but it drew them closer. They rebuilt the barn, together. Clara took up baking and traded goods in town, ignoring the whispers. Jed began speaking more, even laughing, at least with her. The following spring, Clara planted her first flower garden near the porch. Let's see if anything soft can grow here, she said with a smile. Jed watched her from the fence post. Plenty already has. By the second anniversary of their mock wedding, townsfolk stopped sneering. Some even came to the ranch to barter and borrow tools. They couldn't deny what they'd seen. Clara was no joke. She was strength in an apron, joy in a round face, resilience in boots. And Jed, quiet, loyal Jed, was a man who saw gold where others saw shame. Chapter 7. The World They Built. Years later, as Clara rocked their baby boy on the porch, she looked out over land they'd bled and loved into shape. Jed came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her ample waist. Still think they sold you a joke. She teased. He nuzzled her neck. They sold me the best thing that ever happened to me. She smiled, eyes glistening. Guess the joke's on them.